What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm No Streckmine, coming to you live at youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Make sure to check me out anywhere you get your podcasts. As always, go hit those Apple downloads and give me a 5-star review. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And as always, you could also find all of my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We are 9 days away from the 2025 NFL draft. Plenty to talk about. Aaron Rodgers obviously spoke yesterday. We dove into pretty much everything across the board on the quarterback, where the 41-year-old stands, if the Pittsburgh Steelers should listen to it, should move on. A billion different options. Everybody's talking about it. We might, by the end of this show, have an alternative from one voice that I listen to every single day that has presented an idea maybe that I don't think I agree with, but is interesting as we sit here today. Again, we're 9 days away from the NFL draft. We're diving into dream draft scenarios for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what got my brain moving is a mock draft that I recently did with On SI, where, well, the Steelers, they lucked out in a way I didn't think was possible and now may think is possible. And Nick Chubb sent the NFL a little bit of a message the other day, and maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers should be the ones listening. We're diving into all that and more. I'll answer all your guys' questions as I do every single day. So toss them in the chat. I'll get to as many of them as I possibly can. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to our members. Let's get into it. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 9 days from the 21st pick in the 2025 NFL draft, and everything is all over the board. You can go to any outlet across the entire internet and probably find every single different scenario the Pittsburgh Steelers could come up with in the first round of the NFL draft. We're talking quarterback. We're talking different quarterbacks, running back, wide receiver, offensive lineman, safety, corner, defensive tackle, 15 of them probably at this point. And you're sitting around going, wow. Oh, 6 days. Excuse me. 6 days. My apologies. 6 days. 1 week yesterday. I didn't mean 10 days. 6 days from the NFL draft. And you could find every single scenario, every single one. But you got to ask, what's the dream for the Pittsburgh Steelers? If the Steelers had it their way, if they could come up with a perfect draft that is realistic, what would it look like next Thursday night? And where would it go from there? Well, I was doing an NFL on SI mock draft Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're all in a conference call. We're sitting there diving through the picks, and I'm sitting there at 21 thinking, okay, who can the Pittsburgh Steelers get? Who's on their board? Obviously, Shedeur flies off the board at 9. Okay, gone. No, can't sit there anymore. Gotta die from the Shedeur Sanders dream. Is Jackson Dart the move? What running backs are still going to be there? Are wide receivers still going to be on the board? What defensive tackles can the Pittsburgh Steelers land that you make feel really good at 21? Is Kenneth Grant there? Is Walter Nolan there? Is Derek Harmon there? Harmon off the board. Walter Nolan off the board. You're sitting there, Kenneth Grant, easy pick right now. Easy pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Matthew Golden's still there. Emeka Ibuka's still there. Omarion Hampton's still there. Pick before the Pittsburgh Steelers. Denver Broncos. Hampton, gone. I'm looking at the board at 21, and I'm thinking Kenneth Grant's the answer, right? Then I realized Will Johnson's still on there. And that is by far the easiest pick the Pittsburgh Steelers would make at the 21st pick in the first round of the 2025 NFL draft without question. He surpasses quarterback. He surpasses wide receiver. He surpasses running back. He surpasses defensive tackle. That is their dream pick, realistically, is Will Johnson. And we've got others, and I'm going through second, third, fourth round. But I want to make sure that you guys get involved as well. So toss it in there. If you got a dream draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I want to hear it. But you got to start it off. Start your live chat comment off with dream draft : give me your picks, so that I could scroll through 1,000 comments and find them as quickly as I possibly can. Round 1 is Will Johnson. I mean, if we're going to look at realistic, serious situations that the Pittsburgh Steelers can be in, if we're going to look at guys that the Pittsburgh Steelers have their eyes on, have had their eyes on, and could be there at 21, because that's the biggest part of this is you're not going to get Ashton Genty. That's a dream. That dream's going to die real early, earlier than expected, I think. You could say Cam Ward falls to them, and that's the easiest pick in the book. Yeah, obviously, but that would never happen and is not going to happen at all in this draft. You could say Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, a billion others. Realistically, Will Johnson is a guy that can go anywhere from like 10 to 21. I doubt he makes it past 21. And nobody has any idea where he's going to fall because he's a name that if other names start falling, if this draft gets weird, and the fact that only one quarterback might go in the top 9 picks or 8 picks, 2 quarterbacks in the top 9 picks, it could force a domino effect of just good guys going early, and then quarterback goes, and you're looking at it going, okay, where do these guys fall? Who falls further because of it? I think in the first 9 picks, it only helps the Steelers, as crazy as this sounds. Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, if they could all go in the first 6 picks, teams are looking at the Mike Greens, the Michael Williams, anybody out there who you could say could be a top 10 pick, but now maybe goes 10, 12. Helps the Steelers. Will Johnson's a realistic name for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round. It's a dream name, but it's a realistic dream to have for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the second round, we get fun here because this is a dream, and the Steelers are making a trade. That trade is a 2026 second and a 2027 second to move back into the second round of the 2025 NFL draft. In my head, that's the one. That's where we're having the most fun here. Is if you could get back into the second round, you are a completely different team in this NFL draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Completely different. You are going to look at this and say, okay, now we have options. We're not pressed to get a defensive tackle and then a quarterback and then be done. We could get a running back. We can get a corner. We could get all of these fun, crazy things. In the second round, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the easiest pick that they can make in the second round, if he's still there, is Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. I mean, come on. Without question, it's the easiest pick that the Steelers could take in the second round. That dude is a stud. If he somehow gets out of the first, he is a first-round running back talent, but he's going to go in the second round, most likely. And, I mean, that is the name to watch. Travion Henderson is everything that the Pittsburgh Steelers want in a running back. Explosive, physical, can catch the football out of the backfield, can block. I mean, he's a dude that really resembles Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jahmyr Gibbs is so much more than he's been able to put on the field through 2 years because he's working with David Montgomery. Travion Henderson to me is a star in the making. Omarion Hampton is a stud. Ashton Genty's a stud. Travion Henderson in any other draft is viewed as the number 1 running back in the NFL draft. He is a stud. He is an absolute stud. Travion Henderson is the second pick without question. He's the second pick in the draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers in a dreamlike scenario. Round 3. Nobody's going to agree with me on this one, but it's Jalen Milroe. At 83, to be able to get a quarterback prospect that you're looking at going, the upside is massive, ridiculously big. And worst case scenario, we turn him into a power back and say, screw it, we're just going to pitch you, and we're going to tell you to put on some weight. Maybe you could turn into a taller Michael Robinson. Maybe it doesn't work out, but at least you got a backup plan. At least you could try to figure it out. Jalen Milroe is a dude that in 2 years could be way more than he is right now. Could be nothing, but the upside's there. And in the third round, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for upside. Who's got the Alex Highsmith upside to become, I know he's a 4th, but to become I'm going to be a starter. I'm going to be the guy that makes the Steelers hand me a massive contract. Who's got that upside? I think Jalen Milroe in this quarterback class is the only guy that's got that crazy upside that the Pittsburgh Steelers can be going after. And if you're going after a quarterback in this draft at all, Jalen Milroe in the third round is the guy that has more upside than the round presents and is probably going to fall if teams are smart about this, although his invitation to the draft is wild. But if teams are smart about this, they're going to bump him down. And they're gonna view this realistically and put other names in front of them. And I think as we get closer, that train of thought is starting to pick up a little bit. And then to top this one off, We avoided defensive tackle through the first 4 rounds or through the first 3 rounds. Everybody's thinking that's the one. That's the one. That's the one. You got to get a defensive tackle. I agree with you. There's no part of me that sits here and says that the Pittsburgh Steelers could leave this draft without a guy who could walk in and be a starter day one. I think the Steelers in a dream draft scenario land that in Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. This dude is a pass rusher. He comes in. He's probably going to play defensive end where Larry Ogunjobi played, replace that pick for the Steelers. Keanu Benton's going to have to stay at the nose tackle. I don't love that scenario, but I do think with Cam getting older, every year he's probably going to play a little bit less during the regular season, which means that you bump Keanu Benton over. In a crazy world, you make Cam play a little bit of nose tackle so that he gets less reps on the inside for certain games. I'm just tossing out a dream, maybe a wild take, but one that fits this mold. If you go out and you get Norman Lott. Physical, able to stop the run, has great size. Craziest part about him, NFL Draft Buzz, his player comparison is Keanu Benton. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's what you're looking for. That versatile, could play where you need him to play, defensive tackle. I don't mind it. And if I'm going defensive tackle in the 4th round, you could hope that Josh Palmer's there or Josh Farmer's there. You could hope that you get crazy lucky and like Darius Walker's there out of Kentucky. But I think Norman Lott brings a lot of upside, has instant starter potential as your 3rd best defensive lineman, but has instant starter potential and has a ton of upside. And is really like the end of this guy presents superstardom in his play at one point in his career in this draft. There's a line at defensive tackle. It's deep. And you could eventually go, okay, this is where it is where the Steelers might get a guy that in a couple of years turns into an absolute stud. I think Norman Lott is that guy. That's my dream draft scenario, but I'll give you the best ever, just a quick run through here. Number 1, Will Johnson. It doesn't change. If the Steelers luck out, Will Johnson is theirs. Like you can't write it any better than Will Johnson and Joey Porter Jr. I don't care about Darius Slay. I don't care about Corey Trice. Those two long-term is phenomenal and exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers want and need, and changes their cornerback room to maybe the best cornerback room they've had in 40 years. I mean, it's really up there. Number 2, you trade up, you get Darius Alexander because he's an absolute stud. And where do you get a running back? The 3rd round, where you're not getting Travion Henderson, you're getting Quinshawn Junkins. Again, this is the best draft the Pittsburgh Steelers could come up with in any scenario. This is a bit unrealistic. And then the 4th round, you're just bumping your 3rd round down. You're getting Jalen Milroe in the 4th, and I'm telling you, doesn't get any better than that. Doesn't get any better than that. All right, let's go through a couple of dream scenarios here, and then we'll dive into Nick Chubb, maybe Kirk Cousins. I know, I said it, but maybe Kirk Cousins, and diving into all your questions. All right. Derek Harmon, Quinshawn Junkins, Jalen Milroe. That's the dream. I don't hate it. I think Quinshawn in the 2nd is awesome. If you could get Quinshawn in the 3rd, even better. And then Milroe in the 4th is a steal. I'm sorry, but Milroe in the 4th is a steal. Maybe he doesn't turn out to be, but his upside is steal worthy. And I'd be all about it. Dream draft here. Fix the defensive numbers. Fix the run defense. I agree. And I think Kenneth Grant's the guy that does that in the 1st round. Without question. I think Darius Alexander is also there. I think Derek Harmon's there. That could do it as well. Walter Nolan's more of a pass rush guy. Kenneth Grant fixes exactly what you need. Exactly what you need as a Pittsburgh Steelers. Dream draft. Dylan Gabriel riding a draft. Oh, gosh. Dream draft. Noah Strackbein, Nick Belsky, Christian Kuntz, AST triple threat. I mean, anybody who watches Christian Kuntz's podcast understands how awesome. Like, that guy deserves so much more time. He's the coolest long snapper I've ever met, you know? Ever. All right. Dream draft. Ashton Genty. Doesn't get any better than that. And dream draft, round 1, Kenneth Grant. Again, doesn't get... I think, if I'm going to be honest, Kenneth Grant is the guy that I think is realistically the dream for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Will Johnson's a stretch. Kenneth Grant's the guy that's going to be there, and I think they have their eyes on. I really do think they have their eyes on him. Derek Harmon would be my number 2 guess, but unless they're pulling the rug out from under me last second here, those would be my two guys. All right. Let's talk Nick Chubb here. Nick Chubb the other day posted something on Instagram that I think is pretty interesting, to be honest with you. He sent a letter that just said this, very short, very simple. Picture of him working out. They've already wrote my ending when I'm just getting started. I got 3 questions that go with Nick Chubb here, because to me, Nick Chubb is a guy that you consider if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You consider him if you're any team in the NFL, and the Steelers don't need a running back, but they might. And come next Sunday, they really might. Because if the Pittsburgh Steelers walk into the NFL draft, right now where we currently sit, nobody has them taking a running back in the first 2 picks, which means round 1 and round 3 are gone. You're looking at round 4 by the time they pick a running back. Maybe round 5, because that's the interest in the guys that they've shown. And obviously, if the board falls in their, not in their favor, they end up with an Omari and Hampton or a Travion Henderson or something like that at pick 21. But most likely, the Steelers are going running back in the 3rd earliest. And I don't think it's going to be in the 3rd. I think it's going to be in the 4th. And if that's the case, you're looking at a guy like Damian Martinez, Dylan Sampson, RJ Harvey, Gibbons. There are names out there that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be targeting, but I don't think any of them come in here as day one, I'm going to be the guy, absolute stud running back that the Pittsburgh Steelers need. So come next Sunday, maybe the Steelers could listen to Nick Chubb. Maybe. And I think Nick Chubb's a valuable pick if he matches 3 criteria. 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers do not land a starting running back in the NFL draft. 2, you got to move on from Cordero Patterson, because you shouldn't have 4 running backs of that caliber to begin with. You shouldn't have 4 running backs where your 4th one is a kick returner that doesn't make any sense, who is shockingly still on the roster. Okay. And 3, what's his price tag? Because if his price tag is cheap and the Pittsburgh Steelers could get Nick Chubb for little to nothing, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you consider it? Because Nick Chubb at the end of the day is going to sign with somebody. And if he does and he pops off, every other team that could have used a running back is sitting here not super happy about the situation and not super happy that they didn't even call Nick Chubb. The Pittsburgh Steelers know who Nick Chubb can be if Nick Chubb is healthy. If you need that as your 2nd running back, with Kenneth Gainwell as your 3rd coming off the bench, and then a rookie that can develop for a year and then become that guy, why not? Why not? Running backs have short shelf lives. We have no idea if Jaylen Warren's going to be a 3-down everyday runner that can last because of his size. And a lot of people question that. I constantly get people asking me, is Jaylen Warren going to be the guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers? He is. But like every other position, why not have a backup plan? Why not have other options so that Jaylen Warren could stay healthy by the end of the season? Kenneth Gainwell doesn't have to be a power back if Jaylen gets hurt. And Nick Chubb can just be exactly what Nick Chubb should be, which is just a guy who you can hand the football off to in any situation and be okay. People will say J.K. Dobbins and say, why not go after him? He's younger. I agree. But J.K. Dobbins and the lack of interest, in my eyes, tells me that he's too expensive. Tells me that teams have reached out and that chances are he's looking for more money than the NFL is willing to pay him. Nick Chubb cannot come with an expensive price tag. Nick Chubb is looking to get back in the league. He's looking to be on a team this summer because he knows he could still play football. So could J.K. Dobbins, but J.K. Dobbins is young enough to say, I want $5 million. I want $6-7 million a year. I bet you Nick Chubb's 2.5. I'd sign Nick Chubb for $2.5 million, and I'd feel very okay with Nick Chubb at $2.5 million. If you want to sign him for 3, again, totally fine. I doubt Nick Chubb goes for a boatload of money. I just do. And if that's the case, if his price tag's cheap, if you could move on from Cordero Patterson, and if you don't land a Trey Henderson, a Quinshon Judkins, a Caleb Johnson, or an Omari and Hampton, Sunday morning, you should test the waters and say, hey, how healthy are you? You want to come in for a physical? Let's start there. I think that's fine. Because if you go deeper If you go deeper into the draft, get a Martinez, get a Dylan Sampson, get a Devin Neal, get an RJ Harvey. You need a guy or you need a year to see what they become because they're not instant guys. Nobody after the second round of the draft is an instant guy in the NFL and shouldn't be viewed as one. Okay. Call Nick Chubb. Why not? He's cheap. I would say it's not an urgency thing. It's just if you need a running back, he's better than Cordell Patterson. And to be honest, he's probably better than Kenneth Gainwell. Awesome. Sounds good. Get a trio in your backfield. Feel pretty good about the situation. All right. Let's talk quarterback to end this thing off. Yesterday, Aaron Rodgers spoke quite a bit on his future, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tom Arth, of all people, and where he currently stands. And where we sit today, Aaron Rodgers has no idea if he's playing football in 2025. The Pittsburgh Steelers have no idea if Aaron Rodgers is playing football in 2025. And as of yesterday, it kind of seems like the Pittsburgh Steelers have no idea if they're going to be the team that Aaron Rodgers plays for in 2025. Well, one NFL analyst, Rich Eisen, who, man, dude, I listen to every single day. And when he said this one, I said, Rich, we are dead in content, huh? It is a slow time of the year as we wait for the NFL draft and are 6 days away from a draft that is seemingly pretty boring. You know, it's fun, but there's too much other stuff going on and not enough of real draft content. You know, we know Cam Ward's going first. We know Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter probably going 2-3 in some mix there, but nobody really cares about the Browns or the Giants. Steelers are going 21, and we have no idea. But if they draft a defensive tackle, man, that's boring to talk about. You want to know what's fun to talk about? Aaron Rodgers. But people are tired of talking about Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to talk Kirk Cousins. He tossed this out there yesterday saying, just listening to Aaron Rodgers' words and just looking at Aaron Rodgers saying, I have no idea what's going to happen in this upcoming season. Rich Eisen tossed this out there. He said, quote, going into the season with Mason Rudolph, maybe get another vet, ? That's possible. I don't know. Or you trade for Kirk Cousins. That's entirely possible. Wouldn't that be wild that Arthur Smith tries to win a Super Bowl with Atlanta's quarterback? Okay. When it comes to Kirk Cousins, I do not think the Steelers have almost any interest in Kirk Cousins. I do not believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers at any point have had any interest in Kirk Cousins. Obviously, he's been on a list. Everybody's been on a list. The Steelers don't have a starting quarterback, and they need to consider other options. But Russell Wilson was also on that list. And Russell Wilson wasn't a serious option for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he never emerged as a serious option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They wanted Justin Fields. Justin Fields didn't work out. They want Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold didn't work out. They wanted Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is still holding them on. They thought about Joe Flacco. They're thinking about Carson Wentz probably. They signed Mason Rudolph. They go into every single quarterback humanly possible in the NFL draft. Kirk Cousins doesn't seem to be that high on the list. I doubt he's last, but he doesn't seem to be that high. I look at it and say Kirk Cousins is too expensive. No chance that the Steelers are giving up draft capital, which is probably a third-round pick for Kirk Cousins after the draft, which makes it easier. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, third-round pick for a guy you're going to spend a boatload of money on? Fifth-round pick that you're going to spend a boatload of money on? Maybe, but no. I just don't think that the salary is there. I don't think that the expectations are there. I don't think that Kirk Cousins gives the Steelers what they're looking for this offseason, which they have made very clear throughout this entire process that they do not want to tie themselves to somebody who's going to be around guaranteed in 2026. That's where they're at. They have no interest in sitting around waiting for a quarterback to retire who's very close to retirement. They want to sign Aaron Rodgers to a one-year deal. They wanted to sign Justin Fields to a 2-year deal where only the first year was guaranteed. They only wanted a 1-year deal with Russ if that was any consideration at all, and they haven't moved on from that yet. They have not changed course from, we want a guy this year because next year we're going to get our guy in the draft if we don't land him this year. But they want nothing tying themselves to a quarterback in 2026 unless he's a rookie this year. And Kirk Cousins comes with a lot of guaranteed money and more than the 2025 season. And they would not be interested in that. Kirk Cousins to me is not even a pipe dream. It's a would never in a billion years happen for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if they pulled it off, would I be shocked? Honestly, yes. The answer is yes. I just don't see it happening. I don't see Kirk Cousins on their radar. Never have. And I don't think that's going to change. The Steelers need a quarterback, but they want a young quarterback. They've removed themselves from thinking long-term from anybody who's already in the league. Kirk Cousins is long-term. He comes with money. He comes with draft capital that you have to give up next year that you're probably going to use to make a trade to try and get a big-name quarterback. If you don't get one this year, doesn't make any sense. The Steelers are not a Kirk Cousins team. They won't be a Kirk Cousins team throughout this. Rich, man, I listen every single day. My dude. But we are at a point in time where Kirk Cousins is not on the radar for the Steelers. Won't be. And the second that they draft anybody from Shedeur Sanders to Kyle McCord in the NFL draft, there is no shot that Kirk Cousins comes to town. They'll go young. They'll go Mason Rudolph. They'll go Carson Wentz. They'll go Kirk Cousins if you trade him for nothing and take on pretty much his entire salary. But if the Atlanta Falcons are going to take $150 million loss, something in that ballpark, they're not going to make that trade. So it doesn't work. I'm sorry. The Steelers, as big as it sounds, and as much as I think Kirk Cousins still has some gas left in the tank, the Steelers are not interested where we stand today. And I just do not see him as an option for Pittsburgh, no matter how many times we continue to talk about it. All right. That's everything on my agenda today. With that said, start tossing your comments in the chat. I'm going to get to as many of them as we possibly can to end the show. But first, we're going to take a quick break. I'll be back momentarily.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
Shout out to everybody. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. I'm going to start diving into all of your questions, so make sure you toss them in the chat. We'll get through them. With that said, we're going to start off. Chris Noah. I keep seeing the Steelers Tredung with Carolina. Oh, trading. Sorry, it's early. No, I keep seeing the Steelers trading with Carolina to get number 8 and taking Sanders as our quarterback. I would rather go number 1 to get Ward. More upside. More upside, definitely. There is a negative chance the Steelers could get up to number 1. It just wouldn't happen. The Titans are deadlocked in Tennessee. I know that because I work very closely with the Titans and the Titans writers on SI, and we have a really good relationship, and there's just nothing. There's nothing that would move them. And I've never even asked, would the Steelers have a shot? I've just had conversations about, are they taking Cam Ward? What do they see in Cam Ward? That kind of stuff. They love Cam Ward. He's going to the Tennessee Titans. They've made it clear. Cam Ward knows it. He's going to the Tennessee Titans. To move up to number 1, you would have to trade this year's first, next year's first, the first after that, and probably another first, if not multiple seconds, to move up that high to get number 1. Number 8, for a quarterback in a draft that isn't super deep in that top 10, like we're at number 8 and number 21, you're getting good players. I don't think the gap is very significant in quality of player, unless you're getting like an Ashton Genty or a Tyler Warren, but those are not premium positions, so you don't have to look at them that way. If you're going to 8, I think you give up this year's first, next year's first, and maybe a second in the process to do that. I don't think that's crazy. I also wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even think about doing it. I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and say, there's a zero part of me that wants the Steelers to move up, that thinks it's worth it to move up for a quarterback in this draft instead of just sitting around. The gap between Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart is not that significant. The gap between Shedeur Sanders Jackson Dart and the rest of the class is significant, but not in the upside way where you're saying, you know, what was Will Levis's draft? CJ Stroud is the number 2 quarterback in the draft. Will Levis is a second rounder. Those are two totally different players. Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, maybe they both turn out to be great. Maybe they both turn out to stink. I think it's both there for almost this entire draft class. I don't think it's that significant where we stand today. Shout out Broderick Wallace, man. Gifting out 5 All Steelers Talk memberships, joining the AST family. Super appreciative of you and really everybody. Had a question in here about Nick that wish I could find relatively quickly. If he's going somewhere, where he's going. He's going to Pittsburgh Sportsnet. Has been there or begins, I think, at the end of this month. He made his announcement on Twitter. When it comes to what we're going about replacing him and where we're going from there, do have some things in the work. Would probably be after the NFL draft. In the meantime, jumping on with you guys, continuing to do this, and we're going to dive into how exciting things will be in the near future. Don't worry about that stuff. All right, let's keep it trucking here. Maddie here. Hey, no, what do you think is the most important position to nail in the NFL draft? Not what they are going to do, but to really make our team better. That's a good question. Quarterback, but I don't quarterback would be the position, the easy position. You have to nail quarterback. You can't have anything holding you back from quarterback. You have to land the right quarterback. I don't know if you could do that in this draft. So I would probably go defensive tackle. I think landing the right defensive tackle is key because you can't miss on this position. This is a position, this is like Troy Fautano last year, Broderick Jones the year before, Zach Frazier. This is a guy, this is a foundation piece. This guy's going to be here for 10 years. We got to make sure that he's the right guy, that he is going to be here for 10 years. I think that's where we stand position-wise. Is defensive tackle is the position they have to nail. It's the last remaining hole outside of quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Quarterback's the big one. I don't think you could nail quarterback in this draft. And because of that, I would lean defensive tackle. Love the show, bro. It goes great with my morning shout out. If Nick Chubb would play for us, I'm all about it. It's Jerome Bettis 2.0. I kind of agree. Like, I think Nick Chubb at this point is a bully running back who has a ton of upside, obviously, to do more than that. But at his age, where he's at in the NFL career or his NFL career, why not? You know, why not look at him as the guy that pairs well with Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell? Not the guy, but just comes in here to be the reliable backup that you could split between the three and just ride the hot hand. I think that works. The Steelers, maybe Jaylen Warren turns out to be a stud. There's a possibility. And if that's the case, who cares behind him? Who's behind him? Who cares what you do with the players that are behind him? But if Jaylen Warren comes in here and he needs, guys around him, he needs another running back core, Kenneth Gainwell and Nick Chubb and maybe a rookie, you could just, who's riding the hot hand? Who's the best player there? You're not going to pay any of these guys a boatload of money. I think it works really, really well. American Steel Noah got 2 questions. Any update on Nick? Oh, here he is. This is the question. I apologize. Any update on Nick? And do we have a hint on who's your next guy in the corner? Yeah. So Nick went to Pittsburgh Sportsnet. He rocks over there starting next week, I believe. I don't think he's doing on-air content. It's more behind-the-scenes stuff. Next guy in the corner, potentially. I don't think I'm ready to give a hint yet. Next week, I think I'm ready to give a hint on who it would be and where it goes. I will say that it won't be a Chris Carter or an Alan Saunders as much as I would love to get a big name on here, but they do their own things, and we already know that. But it's exciting, and we're going to grow together, and it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. All right, let's keep it trucking here. All right. Oh, here we go. Pittsburgh Hornets. How long is the maximum wait time for Rodgers from each of Tomlin, Cons, and Rooney's perspectives? Great question, because they are different. They are all different. We'll start with Tomlin. Tomlin's open to whenever. He could go forever. He likes Shedeur Sanders. He probably is okay with Mason Rudolph, but not super sold on the Mason Rudolph situation. He's probably okay with the Tyler Shuck, definitely okay with the Jalen Milroe, although I don't think he's on their radar right now, not very high on their radar. He's willing to wait. Tomlin wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to snap the losing streak in the playoffs, and he knows that that Aaron Rodgers is the best bet to go do that, and he's going to remain with that thought. That's not going to change. To Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers is the guy that could get him over the hump this season if he needs a quarterback to get him over the hump. He's hoping his team can do everything else, but he knows that if Aaron Rodgers has to go out there and sling a football for 4 quarters in a playoff game, he can do it. And that's why he's willing to wait. With Omar Khan, I think he's open to waiting. He understands the situation and the PR side of it a little bit more, and he isn't totally pleased with the whole bit. Omar Khan looks big picture. Mike Tomlin looks micro, and Rooney looks at Rooney. Rooney looks at the Rooney perspective, which is much bigger than any other perspective. He has to oversee it all. He has to see every single angle. Omar Khan sees big picture. He understands that there's more than just this season, that there's more than just the quarterback position, that there's more than just trying to win a Super Bowl in 2025. He's trying to do it consecutively. He's trying to make sure that the Steelers brand remains top tier. He probably sees what's going on. Now, he's optimistic, but he probably sees what's going on. I would imagine his is shorter than Tomlin's. Probably after the draft or even during the draft, he's thinking it's time to move on. But with each name that passes off of free agency, I would imagine his waiting time is shrinking. And then I think Rooney's like there. I think Rooney's very close to saying, okay, it's time to move on. Rodgers isn't coming. This is ridiculous. And he's ready to go. I do. I really think that Rooney's nearing the breaking point if he's not there already. And sometimes that's the final cut. That's the final say. Yesterday's words definitely didn't help from Aaron Rodgers. I would imagine that Rooney is very close to the end. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but very close to the end. Here we go. Artisanal Bully Kennel. How about that Tua CV? Nomura. Tua CV. I thought I got it. I watched. First off, it is not easy to find this guy. This is not, you can't dive into draft evaluations of them and start there. You got to do your own digging. You have to start you do the scouting report on this guy. That's how little is out there about him. I like him. I think he's a good player. I think he's super physical. I think he's all over the ball. He, size-wise, no, but playing-wise gives me a lot of Luke Kuechly. A lot of he's in on every tackle. He can play coverage. He can play run. He could stop you at the goal line. If he's on the hash and you're on the sideline, he's gonna catch you. Like that's what he brings to me. I think he's physical. I think his mentals are super sharp. Super sharp. I enjoyed his instincts. I really did. He's a fun player to watch. Like, I think I watched a little bit too much last night, so much to the point where I actually got a headache staring at my laptop and my phone and had to, call it a night a little bit early. My issue with him, because there's got to be good, there's got to be bad. He's probably going to transition to safety, like you said, but I don't know how that works. I don't think he's fast enough to play safety. I don't know if his ball skills are going to match up against, I think they're fine against tight ends, but the second you put him against a T. Higgins in the slot or a DK Metcalf in the slot, I don't think he wins that battle. Whereas I'd give Minka a fighting chance. I'd give Deshaun Elliott a fighting chance. I don't think he's there. I see him more as like a hybrid guy, like a Drew Tranquil, where it's like you're not big enough to play linebacker, but you are going to play linebacker and you're going to, play a little nickel and you're just going to be all over the board. That's where I see him fitting, which comes with a lot of question marks. I think his instinct speed is fast. His coverage speed, his, staying with wide receivers on a straight route, I don't think is fast enough. That's where it worries me. I think he's a good player to take a shot on. I think absolute worst case scenario for this guy, he's a phenomenal special teamer, which stinks, but That's a compliment, to say this guy's going to make it in the NFL no matter what, whether he could play defense or not. I do. I like him. I appreciate you letting me dive into him, forcing me to dive into him. He was a fun player to watch. He actually really was. Fear the Beard Collectibles. I'm sorry, Noah. I just couldn't disagree more. Tenyon that the Will Johnson pick. He's a great zone guy, just not sure he has the speed for the man system. I agree. His speed is concerning. I wish he ran the 40 because that left massive question marks about, like, that was the question. It wasn't, is Will Johnson a good player? Is his speed top tier talent? Can he do that? But I think Kyle Hamilton had a lot of the same questions and he made it work. I also think the Steelers play way too much zone and maybe that helps a little bit. I think if you could utilize you need a speed. I get it. You want another Dante Jackson. And to be honest, Maxwell Hairston at the end of the first round makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. But Will Johnson's got the physicality to beat guys up at the line of scrimmage, to stay with guys. I think for the most part, the straight line speed will be a concern, which I just laid out concerns with Nomura early or 5 seconds ago. It does concern me, but I also think that I do think the Steelers play a lot more zone than we feel they should. And depending on the game, they play way too much zone. That works in Johnson's favor. And I also think that if you could be smart enough, like Joey Porter doesn't have the speed, he makes it work, and you need speed guys. I get it. But if you could have two physical dudes up there and figure it out, if you could have the same playing style on both sides, I honestly think it works in the Steelers' favor. I think Will Johnson is a stud. I get the pullback on him. I really definitely get the pullback on him. A lot of people, he should have ran his 40. He should have ran his 40 because if you run your 40, there's an argument here, but there's just none. There's nothing to say, yeah, but outside of the fact that you have to fix your defense and your secondary playing style around him and Joey Porter Jr. And that's where you would have to go from there. You can't just plug them in and say, all right, well, you're just going to fit with what we do. I hear that. If you ran as 40 and it's a good 40, at least you could say, well, you never know. But I do agree with you. I think the Steelers defense can make it work. And I think the Steelers love this guy. Love him. And I think he's a stud. I think he's physical enough. I think his ball skills are fantastic. I think he's the dude that's been good enough for long enough in the NFL or in the NCAA that people are kind of looking at him going, well, there's got to be something seriously wrong. It's like, yeah, maybe, but maybe not. I think Will Johnson's good. I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to argue against it. I hear what you're saying for sure. Samal, your info with Moats insides would be fire. Oh, dude, Arthur Moats is my dude. Him and Deke do one hell of a podcast. Him and Wes do one hell of a show. Love Moats. Great dude. Fantastic guy. Works his butt off. I think it would be fire as well. I do. I don't know if Moats would come over here to leave his shindig, but you never know. Again, having working some things out. That's the biggest part of this whole situation is I'm instead of rush, like we've done it. We've gone from, okay, this was the move to immediately into this one, to immediately into this one, to immediately into this one. And we've had some fantastic co-hosts on so many good co-hosts on the show. I want this one to be another winner, and I want it to work out. Moats would be awesome. Somebody's got to go tell Moats that, and then I'll text him and remind him that everybody thinks we should do it. All right, Chris here once again. Noah, how would you feel about grabbing Tyler Shuck with our first round and McCord with our fifth to ensure quarterback is not an issue this year? Might be a prudent move. Oh man, I hate to do this, but I don't think Tyler Shuck's that good. I think he's got a decent arm, but I don't think it's as good as everybody's hyping it up to be. He makes me a little bit nervous. I think that at 26 years old, there's not any room for development. Like you're not going to get any better than he is. I don't know. Tyler Shuck to me is concerning. I'd go Jackson Dart in the first. If you were like, if somebody said you have to draft two quarterbacks, one in the first, one in the fifth, they have to be realistic, which means we're ruling out Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I would draft Jackson Dart in the first, and then I would draft, I guess Kyle McCord would be my guy. Will Howard in the fourth or in the fifth if he falls. McCord, I'd go over Dylan Gabriel, over Riley Leonard. I think he's accurate. I mean, he had one hell of a season at Ohio State before he transferred. And I think if he stood there or stayed there and started, there's a chance he's higher on these boards. I would go Jackson Dart and Kyle McCord. I think if you had to take two quarterbacks at those positions, those would be my picks. I'm not a Tyler Shuck guy. I just don't think he's accurate enough. I think there's little room for growth left, and his arm talent overall isn't good enough. And I think there's little room for growth left to the point where, you're probably going to get a mid-tier guy for his entire career, and that's not what the Steelers need. Miguel, after the last decade, why do you have so much faith in Tomlin and Khan? I wouldn't trust those two to get me a haircut appointment on time. I mean, Omar Khan's only been here for 2 years. This is his third draft. I thought he's done fairly well in those two drafts. I thought he's made some very good trades along the way as well. I mean, he got rid of Deontay Johnson at a time where that clearly did not work out for the Carolina Panthers, or Deontay Johnson fleeced the Chicago Bears for Chase Claypool and Joey Porter Jr. I fleeced him again with Justin Fields, to be totally honest. Justin Fields for a 6th round pick. No chance. No chance that should have happened. We were talking first rounder at one point. Troy Fautanu, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, Peyton Wilson, Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington to a degree. Like, I think he's done very well, to be honest. I don't think he's made a bunch of big splashy moves, but I think last year getting Patrick Queen for cheap worked out really well. I think Deshaun Elliott's a stud. DK Metcalf was a reach for sure, but to sit yourself in a position where the Steelers have very minimal holes and decent upside, I kind of like it. Tomlin, there's a bunch of questions. And I think anybody who sits here and says, I have no faith in Mike Tomlin anymore, I can't argue against that. I can't. Omar Khan, I think I could have faith in still. I think he's just getting started. I think he's new to this, and I think he's honestly been impressive for what he can do and the position that he's been in for the last 2.5 seasons. So I'm a big Omar Khan guy. Tomlin, there's I don't think he's an elite coach where we stand today, but I think he's got the potential to be one. Omar's just getting started. Cody Silva, can you have Chris Carter on as a guest? Yes, Chris is on the list for next week, actually. Super pumped for that one. Got Chris trying to get Derek Bell on here, but his schedule is crazy. Would hope to get Alan Saunders on here and the return of our boy Nick Martin as well. That's my hopeful list for next Monday through Thursday, and then we head in to the NFL draft. We'll see what happens. A lot of people got a lot of stuff going on during draft week, but that's the hope. That's definitely the hope. Carter's my dude. I love when we do shows together, and his inspiration on how he handles his show, to be honest with you, helps me. Like, I'm looking at it going, I think it's possible to be done where instead of tying yourself to one co-host, I can provide a lot of different perspectives to you guys, and that intrigues me. So kind of testing the waters on that right now. But again, we've got a couple of plans. Chris Carter's the guy. I expect him on next week. I'll keep you guys posted more on Monday with who else is coming on the rest of the week, but I have those in the works. Tyler Dott's here with $4.99 contribution. Can't tell you how grateful I am for all you guys today. It feels like a good show, man. Feels like a good show. All right, let's keep it trucking here. J.K. Dobbins for $5 million is a bad deal. I don't think it's a bad deal. I would go Nick Chubb for $3 million over J.K. Dobbins for $5 million, I believe. I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think it'd be very close. I think where the Steelers stand there, let's put it in that perspective, because I don't think I could make a strong argument to say Nick Chubb over J.K. Dobbins for both cheap price tags. I don't think that could happen. I do look at it and go, the Steelers want to give Jaylen Warren a shot. J.K. Dobbins' low price tag is probably $5 million, but he's probably looking for more than that. I think they would be more interested in a cheaper Nick Chubb than a more expensive J.K. Dobbins. I don't think it's a bad deal. I don't think J.K. Dobbins for $5 million is a bad deal. I don't think J.K. Dobbins for $8 million is a bad deal. I think he's a good running back who's got like so much left in the tank if he could stay healthy. It's just, can he stay healthy? That's the question. You know what I mean? That's the big question. Cody Silva, how realistic is Harmon, Junkins, and Milroe? If their Steelers are keeping their picks now, I don't think it's super realistic. I think Harmon's realistic, very realistic. I think Quinshon Junkins in the third is an option for the Steelers, but I think it's very unlikely. You know, he's, in my eyes, he goes one of two ways. Junkins either goes way higher than we anticipated. I would not be shocked if Quinshon Junkins is the dude that is the third running back taken in the draft. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Would I be surprised if it does? Also, no. I could see him being that guy. I could also see Junkins falling and Caleb Johnson falling, and there being a gap between Trey Henderson early in the second and then that next pick early in the third. I could. And if that's the case, I could see Junkins being the last guy and him being there at 83. Again, I think both are possibilities. The most likely outcome is something right in the middle there. Jalen Milroe in the fourth, I don't think is possible. I think he's going to go higher. I think he's a second-round pick where we sit today. Those draft invites usually know what they're doing, what they're talking about. I would guess Jalen Milroe is a second-round pick. Worst case is an early third, but I don't think he makes his way to Pittsburgh. If he was in there in the fourth, no questions asked. I think he is the Steelers pick. They wouldn't even pass on him. Again, I don't think they're super high on the 21. I think 83 maybe, but I don't think it's super likely. I think they view it the same way I do, the same way a lot of us do. He's going to be gone before they pick again, and they're not taking him with his first pick. So Harmon definitely. Junkins I could see going all over the place, and Milroe I would say is the least likely of the bunch. Brad, has the ghost come back because the shelf in the back has changed frequently? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I came back one day. Again, pretty sure it was the wife. Came back one day. The books were gone. They were all laid down. And I said, all right, well, that was creepy, but I'm going to ignore it. And we're just going to go back to the normal setup. I can't get the normal setup to work. It just keeps falling. So this is what we're rocking with today. But to be honest with you, I'm finally back in Pittsburgh for a full weekend. So this weekend we're doing the outside. We're planting some flower or some plants. We're diving into that. This is getting fixed. This is getting fixed for the draft. That's my to-do list. I know my daughter Eden, and I love the show. She's 2 years old, and every night when picking her up from daycare, she yells at me to turn on Steelers talk. Her favorite player is TJ. Pay the man. First off, that's awesome. This comment just made my whole day. Shout out to you, Eden. Shout out to you. Ooh, Lunenberger. Oh, Lunenberger Dairy. That gotta get that one. I thought that was a first name. My bad. Shout out to you guys. You just made my whole day. I'm glad that you guys are all into it. And I hope that I can provide the best content possible for you guys and the most updates, the best information that I could possibly bring to you guys. Brings me enjoyment every single day. Pay TJ Watt. Pay TJ Watt. It's so easy to pay TJ Watt. It's crazy. Like $40 million in 2 years is going to be nothing. $40 million for a wide receiver in 2 years is going to be the standard, let alone an edge rusher. Pay TJ Watt. Pay TJ Watt. Alan Saunders put out a phenomenal article the other day explaining that the last time the Steelers paid TJ Watt, they paid him 15% of their salary. This time around, it'd be 14 point something if he's $40 million. Pay TJ Watt. There are no questions to it. Pay TJ Watt. John, feel like if we signed Chubb by week 6-7, it would be a Mark Ingram situation with him wanting to be the starter, and he would definitely be behind Warren. Oh, could possibly be that situation. I mean, Mark Ingram came with that though, where he like knew he wanted to be the dude. Chubb's coming off an injury. If that happened, that stinks. I think you could trade him. I think you could move on from him for something. The Steelers love ditching hostages. If you could get a 5th-round pick for Nick Chubb, that's awesome. You know, that's cool in the middle of the season. Use them for 6-7 weeks. I hear you, though. I think that is a possibility. Darian, how would you feel about a D-line with Benton Cam and Deshaun or Desmond Watson? I don't think Desmond Watson is NFL capable right now. I think he's good, but I think he does have to lose some weight. I think he's too big. And in the NFL, it's so much faster. I'm concerned he's not going to be able to hold up. Love Benton, love Cam. I think you go somebody much earlier if that's the case. And you're looking for a guy in the first, second, third, fourth rounds to be that guy that starts at defensive end or nose tackle. I think Desmond late, like 6'7", undrafted, cool. If that's the case, I would love to take a shot on him. I just don't think he's worth a pick higher than maybe a 7th, to be honest, because I just don't think that his size right now works in the NFL. I think he's going to be gassed. I think he's going to be a little bit too gassed in this league. Samuel, what's more likely? Tomlin is fired or they get him to waive his clause? Will we regret not doing it earlier? Tomlin is fired is what's more likely there. He would not waive his trade clause, I don't believe. I don't think the Steelers will regret it because I don't know if there's an option. Like, it's like the Ben situation. You move on from Tomlin before this team is ready and you don't get an opportunity to see what it was. And you wanted Ben to leave. The Steelers were bad, and they've been bad since. I'm not saying Ben was the savior. I'm just saying we learned that it's not easy to replace a guy of that caliber. I think Tomlin is right around the same situation right now. The way I look at Mike Tomlin and firing him and cutting his leash short and whatever is this. If you are the Pittsburgh Steelers and you get a franchise quarterback in the next 2 years, and within the next 3 years, which is the end of his contract, he does not win more than one playoff game. He does not look like a Super Bowl team in the playoffs. If that's the case, you move on. But until you get that franchise guy, until you say this team's pretty good, which they're very close. They're very close to being a complete football team. I'm not saying as good as the Eagles. I'm just saying the Steelers have been really bad for a couple of years. They finally have the pieces there where if they click, they're good. They got to click. It's a massive if, but they got to click. Quarterback's one of them. If you get a quarterback and you see what he could do with them, that's when you decide. But right now, you can't judge not winning playoff games off of Russell Wilson or Mason Rudolph or, Kenny Pickett. You have to judge not making or winning playoff games off of a guy who should win or make playoff games. If the Steelers get that in the next year or two and then they still don't win, yeah, I think you got to move on. And I think at that point, you will regret it. Kirk Cousins and Super Bowl do not belong in the same sentence. Yeah, I agree. I don't think where we sit right now, there is a situation where Kirk Cousins, in my eyes, is a Super Bowl quarterback. And he's just not worth it. He's just not worth the trade at the end of the day. Cody Silva, if the Rams, Saints, Giants, Browns get quarterbacks this year, random teams are going to start picking quarterbacks. Milroe could fall, and next year's draft, who would get quarterbacks? All right, so let's sit in that situation where the Rams, the Saints, the Giants, the Browns all get quarterbacks this year, and they're all in situations where they're not regretting it in a year and they're not ready to move on. All possibilities. Who would be the teams next year? The teams next year would be the Raiders, would be possibly the Jets, because you don't know what's going to happen with Justin Fields, would be who else is up there? The Panthers aren't moving on from Bryce Young unless they get the first pick in the draft. Then you have to consider it. Then you definitely have to consider it. Those would be the big two, to be honest. Those would be the big two. And then you'd have the random teams that decided to move on, that are, we're good. We don't want this guy. But there are a lot of young quarterbacks. The Arizona Cardinals fit that bill. We're done with Kyler. We're ready to move on. Teams like that show up and say, all right, we're good. But those would be the two. The Raiders, possibly the Jets, that are looking for a quarterback in 2025 or 2026. And if that's the case, Steelers' door just flew open to go get a dude somewhat early and get their guy, the guy that they're looking for. So I do think that's a possibility. I don't think it's likely that the Saints, the Browns, the Giants all get quarterbacks that in a year from now they're okay with. I think all of them get quarterbacks maybe in the second round, and a year from now are in the same boat as the Steelers with Jalen Milroe. We're looking at it going, nah, okay, we're like we could sit here and avoid the quarterback position, but we should go get another just in case. I think that could be a possibility as well. I'm not totally sold on all of these teams being done with quarterback after the 2025 draft. All right, keeping it going. Maddie, what's the fascination with older quarterbacks? I get wanting vets, but that has not worked out. Why repeat again? I mean, just because the upside with Rodgers immediately is bigger than a rookie. Rookies don't win Super Bowls. They've never won a Super Bowl. They never will win a Super Bowl. It's way too big of an adjustment. But that being said, you don't avoid it for a veteran. You just add a veteran to start now. That's what the Steelers are looking at. They're saying, if we get Jackson Dart, cool, but we still want Aaron Rodgers right now. We still want him to be the guy in 2025. I agree with that philosophy. I don't disagree with it. It fits the bill today. It fits the bill a year from now when you have a guy who could be your guy. When you have a guy in week 7 who could be your guy if Aaron Rodgers stinks. But you got to give the guy who probably gives you the best shot, which is a small shot, but the best shot right now. That's how they feel it. Stephen Cornfield, Noah, not a question. Just hope you have a great Easter. You guys too. I hope everybody enjoys a wonderful weekend in Pittsburgh, a great holiday. It's a good time, and it's supposed to be sunny here in the Berg, so that's awesome. That's awesome. Tom, everyone is mad that the Steelers are waiting for Rodgers, but if Rodgers was never available, would this offseason have gone any differently? Russ still would not have been re-signed and Fields leaves. Phenomenal question, Tom. Phenomenal question, Tom. I think it turns out differently in the same realm of it's a veteran and it's Mason. The Steelers end up with Mason Rudolph. And to be honest, I think Russell Wilson probably ends up back in Pittsburgh. Probably. I think it's super unlikely, but or was unlikely the second that Rodgers was there. But if Rodgers said no, it'd have to be a hard no. Rodgers, I'm good. I'm not going to Pittsburgh. I'm signing elsewhere. He signs with New York. I think Jameis Winston potentially ends up in Pittsburgh. I think Joe Flacco potentially ends up in Pittsburgh, and I think Russell Wilson potentially ends up in Pittsburgh. And I think it's in that order. The Steelers didn't want Russ. They didn't see the upside in Russ. They didn't see the development with the wide receivers in Russ. Jameis has an arm. He's fun. I think that they would look that way. I think they'd look Joe Flacco's way. I think there's a possibility they're in trade talks for crazy names like Will Levis. That's how I think it turns. I think it's another veteran, not as good as Aaron Rodgers, but is another name to compete with Mason Rudolph. I still think Mason ends up here. And I think their urgency for a quarterback in the draft is much higher. Much higher. So far, nothing changes draft-wise for the Steelers. They do not look at Aaron Rodgers as the reason that they're going to change anything in their draft plans. But if you had Joe Flacco or Jameis Winston, I think you would say, okay, just in case this doesn't work out, we need somebody else. I think that's what would change. I'd be very interested in this hypothetical to go back and you'd have to break it down by day. But if he broke it down, or if he said no on Monday, said I'm good, signs with the Giants, my guess honestly is Jameis Winston. That's my guess. Pittsburgh Hornets, what's the gap between Jackson Dart and the next quarterback in talent? I don't think it's that far. I think it's Tyler Shuck, and I don't think it's that deep. I think Tyler Shuck and Jackson Dart both come with limitations, both come with limited upside. Their arm talent's not the greatest. Their processing isn't the greatest. Tyler Shuck's is probably actually a little bit better than Jackson Dart's. But I don't think they're like incredible throwers of the football or quarterbacks that will most likely lead you to a Super Bowl. They could end up being a Joe Flacco and goes and gets you one. They could end up being a Derek Carr, with less arm, I think. But that's what I see in these guys. Just mid-round quarterbacks at their peak. And I don't think it's that significant of a gap. I think there's a significance after that. I think the next one's Jalen Milroe, and I think it's a wide gap. I think it's talent-wise, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milroe. Like, it's significant. But the upside of Jalen Milroe is through the roof compared to Tyler Shuck. So that's the difference there. But Jalen Milroe is not a quality passer. Not even close. There's so much to fix there. I think it's worth trying to fix, but that's just my opinion. Keeping it trucking here. Dream draft here by Andrew. Trade down in the first, up in the third, and get 2 seconds. Grab Darius Alexander and Henderson, then get Kyle McCord, Nick Nash, and Jalen Reed in the later rounds. Love Jalen Reed. Think that's a great pick. Trade down from the third and get 2 seconds. You'd have to give up quite a bit to go back or to trade down from the third and get 2 seconds. You might have to give up next year's first in that situation. If you do, you get Darius Alexander and Trey Henderson. I love those picks. And I think that they'd be real good second rounders for the Steelers, especially Darius Alexander, where I look at like Trey Henderson's a first round talent. Darius Alexander's a second round talent, and I'd be all about it. He gives me Keanu Benton is going to make an impact in year one type of vibes. All right. Keeping it trucking here, scrolling through some comments as we look to not miss anything this morning. Shout out Dominic Stage. Noah, what do you think about the only running backs the Steelers haven't brought in are Genty and Judkins? Why not bring them in? I think, honestly, Judkins, they have a lot of film on. They spent time at the pro day, and they just ran out of guys. Like, I truly think that. I think they ran out of guys. They picked Henderson over Judkins. There's also the possibility that Judkins turned it down and said, I have too many visits. I have to go other places. I don't have time to come to Pittsburgh. That's a possibility as well. These guys understand the situation. You know, Judkins isn't a first round pick, and the Steelers don't pick again until the third. So if there's 25 other second round teams that call Judkins, he's going to go there instead of Pittsburgh because higher value. It's a math equation on both sides. So I think there's a possibility. Genty doesn't surprise me at all. They know they're not getting Genty. They love Ashton Genty. They're not getting him. Judkins, I think, is on their radar. I wouldn't rule him out. I look at him as Kenneth Grant, as he's a guy that impressed them, that they certainly enjoyed. They like his tape. They think he's got plenty of upside, fits what the Steelers are looking for. They just didn't have time to bring him in. That's honestly how I look at them. I still think both him, Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, all on the Steelers list heading into, Emeka Ibuka didn't come in for a top 30 visit, all on the Steelers list heading into the NFL draft. People are making a big deal out of the last 2 years, drafting a guy that they brought in. That trend isn't very long. So I would wait and see. I would still keep these guys on your list for sure. Pittsburgh Hornets, how much can Rodgers miss in training camp before other players start taking that as a sign it's okay for them to miss as well? Day one. The Steelers want a quarterback by training camp. They're not going to look for, they won't go into training camp without a quarterback. They won't do it. I promise you that. If Mason Rudolph is the only veteran on the roster day one of training camp, he's their starting quarterback in week one. Unless it's a rookie that looks real good. But the Steelers will have a complete quarterback room by day one of training camp. The only way that would change is if some crazy name got released or traded and they made a move there. But besides that, it's they're sticking with the group they walk into training camp with. If Rodgers isn't part of it, he's not coming. I can promise you that. Grayson the Ginger, hey Noah, do you think the Steelers will draft a quarterback but also still open to Aaron Rodgers joining later on down the road before training camp? Yes. I think that's most likely what's going to happen. The Steelers are going to draft a quarterback in the third, fourth round, and they are going to wait for Aaron Rodgers and feel that he will sign before July. Do I think he signs before OTAs and minicamp? No chance. Do I think that he signs before July 25th? Potentially. Definitely potentially. But yeah, I do think the Steelers they will hold out for Aaron until they feel they have to make a drastic turn or they give up and say, this is our group, we're done. But if if everybody starts flying off the board, if a draft or if a trade becomes available, if something crazy happens, the Steelers will change pace and say, Rodgers, you're done. Sorry, dude, we're going this direction. The only other way that they won't wait until the day of training camp is if Rodgers tells them, I'm not ready yet, and they say, okay, well, we're going to sign so-and-so who's still on the open market. No calls golf. I'm late again, but here, happy Good Friday to those who observe, and hope everyone has a great Easter weekend. Shout out to everybody, man. I hope everybody has a phenomenal weekend starting today. It's a good time. I'm super excited. I love Easter, man. Good food. I love any holiday because of good food. Big good food guy. Big good food guy. John, hey, Noah, how about Zach Gentry in the corner? Little AST grilling and chilling with Noah and Zach. I love it. I love it. Zach Gentry was a great dude, is a great dude. He always brought a smile to my face when I got to talk to him. His grilling and chillings were awesome. Maybe I could just get Pat. Maybe I could just get Pat here and put him in the corner and have a good time. That would be incredible. Shout out to Zach Gentry, man. Hope he's doing good. Eddie the First, good morning, my brother. So many Nico drafts have us taking Dart with our first pick. With that being said, who do you think Cole Holcomb would draft? Ben a minute. Cole Holcomb would definitely draft Kenneth Grant. There's no question he'd draft Kenneth Grant. He'd want a dude in the middle right in front of him for him to be like, all right, go left, go right. I got the other side. Easily it would be Kenneth Grant. That dude is a stud. And even Cole Holcomb knows 100%. Noah, how is Steven Thompson doing? I enjoyed the back and forth between you guys before last year's draft. Steven's my dog. He's doing well over at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, man. It feels good to, whenever I mention those who have been here, say, oh, yeah, this guy went to this big, giant place and is doing big, giant things. So he's doing good. I actually was just texting him the other day because me and my wife were at a restaurant and our waiter looked exactly like him. I think everybody looks like Steven Thompson. I don't know why, but I do. And I had to shoot him a text. Say, yo, does your brother work here? It was a no, but it was awesome. How about bringing Chris Boswell in on a co-host for a corner kick? That would be awesome. That would be awesome. All right, let's keep it trucking. Cody Silva, who else would draft quarterbacks if the Giants? Oh, I apologize. Here we go. What's your most realistic trade down scenario? Oh, that's a good question. It's a good question. My most realistic trade down scenario is the Giants. Two of them. Okay, so the one I could come up with in my head, the one that you could see, that you could foresee right now, because that's the difference. The one that I could foresee right now is the Giants. The Giants saying, we got to jump the Browns. The Steelers are willing to trade. Let's do something drastic. Let's go get Shedeur Sanders. That would be it. I don't think it's for Jackson Dart. I don't think it's for Tyler Shuck. I think it's just simply Shedeur Sanders. They would be the team that has to jump Cleveland to go do that. Pittsburgh, if they get lucky enough, they're moving that far. But what I could see happening on draft night is the Pittsburgh Steelers getting some phone calls from teams who want Matthew Golden, who want Tatarion McMillan, who want Omarion Hampton, who want whoever, and are saying, we have to go get this guy. We can't take a risk that this guy is gone at 22, 23, so we have to trade up. Much like the Bills and the Chiefs did for Xavier Worthy. Nobody saw it coming, but the Chiefs knew that's who they wanted. I think that's where it happens on draft night, is if it's going to happen that some random team is going to call the Steelers and say, we want to go get this random player that has fallen and we're going to trade with you. I think that's the most realistic situation. But if you had to foresee it right now, it would be the Giants. Over under 75% if we sign Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben doesn't call him and welcome him here. Yeah, over by $1 billion, dude. Maybe a text message, but there ain't no chance. There ain't no, Ben's media at this point, and he got called out yesterday. No, I don't think it would ever happen. Don't think it would ever happen? Some good ones here. Noah, what's your 3 best fast food places ever? That's so hard. Culver's might top my list. I love Culver's. They're phenomenal. Bojangles is phenomenal as well. I'm a Popeyes guy. I love Popeyes. I low-key love Arby's, man. Arby's is fantastic, but they're not like that good. If you include, what is it called? Down in the South. It's like Backyard or camping or something wild like that. I have no idea. I'll give you my top 2 because those are the ones I'll think of right now that are cool. Culver's, Bojangles, both phenomenal. I'm not a Raising Cane's guy. Love Popeyes. Not a Chick-fil-A guy. I keep it simple. All right. Let's find Cookout. Shout out. All right. And we will finish off the week, I guess, with this one from Noah Thomas. Will Howard and Quinn Ewers, who do the Steelers pick if they are both available in the 3rd or 4th, or do they skip both? Let's say both of them are there in the 3rd round. That is where I predict the Steelers draft a quarterback right now. I'm going Quinn Ewers. I think the Steelers are very fascinated in Quinn Ewers. I think they see way more upside in Quinn Ewers because of his mentals and his leadership than maybe the common folk do. Like, I think me and you watch Quinn Ewers and we just watch Quinn Ewers and say, that's not that impressive. I think the Steelers, I think other teams who got to meet with him say, this guy is very impressive in the I guess the QB room, very impressive on the whiteboard, is very impressive to interview, has great leadership, overcame a ton. I would say Quinn Ewers. I think the Steelers are big fans of Quinn Ewers. I think they're fans of Will Howard. I think Will Howard is more NFL prototypical. I think Will Howard has maybe a little bit more upside in the NFL than Quinn Ewers, but I think the Steelers would go Quinn Ewers if that was the case. All right. With that said, guys, we're going to close out the week. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check me out anywhere you get your podcast. Go hit those audio downloads and give me a 5-star review on Apple. It would be so appreciated. And as always, you can find all of my work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, enjoy another beautiful weekend in the Berg. I'll be back on Monday. Peace.